Thank you so much, and I would like to thank all of you to coming here because this is a tough race against lunchtime. So I really appreciate you are here. And as mentioned correctly, my topic is related to monitoring itself, but it's not a new thing like AI solutions. So it's it exists for a while. So I've been using it in large companies. We have application monitoring teams, we have application operation teams, and they are doing this on a daily basis. But before talking about monitoring, you had many great topics related to improving the quality processes. So it's important if you want to have your product you want to have a project in the production in an earlier stage, or you just want to make sure you deliver the thing in the right direction and that everything is in place. So what would you do next is you might save money and some other things, might you need to do CI/CD, or you just taking your test automation away, or just the management comes to you, hey, I need automation, we are in an agile transformation, we need to improve processes. So there are many reasons. And other reasons can be we don't know where we are going, so might need to define where we are. And it's really important to know, because if you are talking about continuous testing approach, many of you already heard about this, but related to traditional modeling, in traditional model, you do your testing activities just after the deployment. So you have coding, you are not checking requirements, you are just doing the testing after the code went to the UAT, SIT, and environments. Related to the shift-left model, you're starting your activities earlier stages. So you have quality gates related to requirement testing, you have some static code analysis, you also have some acceptance criteria for your unit testing. For instance, if you have a healthcare company, you need to have 99 or much more percentage as an acceptance criteria for the unit testing. And of course, well-defined testing pyramid is also always okay. But there is one thing, to not stop your quality activities when the product is deployed to the production. Just keep going, and just do your monitoring and alerting activities. You need to understand how the users are really behaving. So just after the deployment, you don't need to stop. You just need to continue your quality processes there. And this is the key. I think you saw many times this picture. So it's commonly used. So this is you are planning your activities in early stages. You have the quality gates there. And after all the quality gates passed, you are in a lucky stage. Because you have the requirements tested, you have the unit test pass, you have integration test pass. If you are in a matured state, you have mocks and stubs and simulated tools. But once all the picture is there, you are able to deploy to the production or in a higher level environment. When you deployed it to the production, it's not the time to stop, it's time to continue. You have to do some testing activities. You develop the right thing there. So if you are talking about there's UI changes, you need to make sure you deliver the right things and it won't crash. So you need to make sure that it's being tested and being monitored, and the information gathered from the production is being looped back to the planning activities, and you can plan it accordingly. So we are going to talk about shift right here. So shift right? What is that in a nutshell? Is you have your planning activities, you are just deployed through production. After all of your testing activities, you're trying to share the feedback with the relevant stakeholders to plan their things accordingly. But shift right, it's sometimes called as testing on the production, but it's not really, it's much more. It's not just testing on the production, but also you follow and continue the quality control activities. So you can do synthetic monitoring or some other monitoring techniques. And if you can see the chaos there, it's not a good thing if you are talking about quality. But there is a technique, and Netflix has relegated to called chaos monkey. So it's randomly eliminating some instances from services. So you can simulate some electricity outage and some other things on your environment. Not always in the production, but imagine like higher level environment, so my UAT or another fully integrated environment. If we are talking about monitoring and observing, it's not just related to the IT. So let's just give you a real example from real life. Just imagine you are in a restaurant and you are just trying to order some food, and like the waiter is just giving your food, and like you just finished as a client, so kind of a user acceptance test, and they are just getting like, how was it? How did you like your food? Yeah, it was great. It was not great. They are just collecting the information, and the manager of the restaurant might decide, okay, I saw like chicken was good, and some of the stuff was not good, so we might change in the menu, and we are selling more chickens like after next week. But if you're talking about IT monitoring, I would suggest like from some aspects it's the same, but it's related to more like to quality than other things. Like if you have like poor quality or non-healthy system on there, and there are like many errors or huge response times, it's not good. And on the other hand, if you don't know how your users are behaving, you are not able to plan accordingly, because sometimes you just testing the right thing, but you are not taking enough attention to it. So for instance, just imagine there is a mobile application, and 80% of the cases just the things used from the dashboard or just to pay your bills, and that's it. No one cares with the other pages. Sometimes it's happened. And on the other hand, it's also important to understand like how it's being used. So as I mentioned, like if the dashboard used, might you need to pay attention more? So might you need more instances if we are talking about distributed architecture? But if it's not distributed architecture, might you just need to like increase CPU or memory related to the given services there? And as of course there are many different things to monitor, but I separated it 3 different things, but you can add more. So for instance, if you need to monitor databases most, or like Kubernetes, like base images, like how is the memory consumption in your infrastructure. And I would suggest like to monitor them together. So it's like giving the value only in this case. So if your users are facing some issues, you will see the errors in the logs. You will see how the infrastructure is used. So like the CPU, the memory. And might you have like many API calls because some wrong implementation of the APIs. So I would suggest like many of you like already faced with these issues. And what I was facing many issues as well. So I wanted to give you like real examples what I was facing. Yeah, so I have here many times like, it's slow. Let's increase CPU and memory to solve the problem. No, it's not. What can solve the problem if you understand how to configure it correctly and how to optimize the services. Might you are doing like 10 APIs call for the same service and you need only once, or like might you have like database queries and you are not using IDs, or you are just like have too many resources there, or might you don't have replicas or so on. But there are many solutions there. And on the other hand, like some of the things are not related to the solution or the technical challenges itself. So sometimes like business can see some issues, like users are complaining. And on the other hand, like the operation teams can see the issues, like there are many errors. Both of them are complaining, they're managers, but it's not connected together. So just to have like established communication channels between the teams, especially if you're talking about monitoring, like the monitoring team, like infrastructure, application, and users, like if you are working together, that can really solve the problem. So it's like it's a must to have the communication there. Like dev teams cannot solve the problem alone. They need you, the business, the other teams, like my development teams, tester teams, and so on. And of course, as you see, there are many different aspects of this monitoring and established communication channels. Everyone is looking for unicorns who can solve the problem alone, but it's not really feasible. So it's a team job. You need to have some teams. It's like might across teams, or you can set up a team, like kind of monitoring team to establish these things, even with the communication as well. But sometimes it's not enough. You're just sitting around with your guys during the night, trying to figure out why it's not working. And there are always some new challenges. So you saw like 100 challenges. You already solved many of them. You have many patterns, but there's a new one. Like you just don't see a load balancer on your monitoring solution because something wrong happened. So it's sometimes not easy, but to have the experience, it's always giving you help. And it's important to share experiences like what you see and so on. And sometimes you're trying to make it better, but you are doing the job done, but just you are introducing some new issues because some of the users monitoring techniques like analytics techniques use APIs to send the data to the analytic tools. And if it's implemented in the wrong way, it can cause issues. So it's like also another steps to test your monitoring solution and like to have observability in the right direction, in the right place. It's not that easy. So might you need to have log patterns and so on. So we saw some challenges, benefits, but how should we do and when and why? When should not? So it's like, I would suggest like it's always helpful, even if you have a short life cycle of your project. It can even helpful. Might you don't need a complex monitoring system, but it's really help if you understand the basics, and it doesn't cost much. But there can be really challenging situations. So if you have like a distributed architecture with like Kubernetes microservices, what are very popular now, or like many databases, like it's not that easy. So you need to plan actually. So you need to understand like where you are now and what you are looking for. And you need to establish the communication channels and the observability things. And after that, you can do the planning and the implementing activities. But it's also, again, not just you have the right things and the right methodologies in-house, but you need to find the right tools. Some of the tools can solve, I wouldn't suggest all of your problems, but supported with AI can solve many problems. So for instance, Dynatrace, the newest version, it's a really great tool. It's using AI, and it can solve really a lot of issues, including microservices, databases. It can find the issues instead of you. But if you are using it in the wrong direction, it doesn't give you help. But on the other hand, it costs a lot. So it's not the place for you to implement Dynatrace. Might you are just have some logs and you just implement some patterns for the logs, or just using Splunk for microservices and so on. So you need to take care of many things. But after you decided to implement, there is some instructions. Like you might follow this, but you might expand with your things. Like if you are in a mobile company, might you need to something to monitor your mobile? So might you need Firebase, synthetic monitoring, or like you can do Firebase testing, or you can do like Google Analytics, like other tools to monitor users. But at the end, you will have it in a ready stage, and you will operate it. So to reach this, it's not always as easy as we think. So sometimes we have the right people in place, but they just don't know how to do it. So might you just need to establish the knowledge there. So you might just need to train them in the right direction to use it in the right way. And so what would I suggest? So it's an easy thing if it's implemented in the right way, but there are many mistakes you can do to implement it in a wrong way. So, like, first of all, like, have the decision, I want it. I see it can help. After you have the decision, you can go to the next steps, and you can find some ideas how to implement it. It has many challenges. So, like, as I mentioned, there are no unicorns. So you need to think in teams, communication. Communication is always a key. Not just talking about agile, but in general, in IT and life, it's like a key. So we are people, we need to communicate with each other to make values. And on the other hand, like, it's not just communication, but there can be some broken things like related to the observability itself. So if you are implemented in the wrong direction and you don't have the logs in place, so some of the servers are located in Asia and some of the other servers located in the US, and like you have like different time zones locked, it doesn't help so much. So you need to align patterns, like using the correct log levels. And it's not just about logging. So yeah, there are many other tools, but doesn't need logs. So you just see how the users are behaving. And on the other hand, like, know how the users are really behaving. It gives you the value to use this information, and not just in your planning activities, but you can think about, like, okay, so the users have used these scenarios most, so I should use this information in my activities. You can implement risk-based testing, and you can understand where are the most risky areas. And if you are confident what the users are doing, you can deliver values, you can deliver the quality there. So it's not easy again, but there are 3 directions, and you can follow them to implement it in the right way. I actually used it many times, and I would suggest it's really helpful. So I hope you are waiting for the lunch as well. So thank you for your attention.
Okay. Yes. First ones are leaving for lunch, but I think there will be long queues. It's worthwhile staying a little bit and listen to your answers to the questions, because we have a couple of questions. The first one is from Daniel Huska. What do you think, in general, how much time should a tester spend in monitoring and observing and analyzing the data from these processes?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I would suggest, if you are a tester, regardless of automation or manual testing engineer, you just think about, okay, I did a regression, like might an automated regression. After the regression, you just don't see the reports only, but you can cross-check the logs. If you can see errors, you can easily see, like, if a dashboard is implemented. So it like takes 5 minutes. The problem is to implement the dashboard in the right direction. If it's there, it's just 5 minutes. Yeah, of course, if you need to open a bug, that's might another 5 minutes.
Thank you. The next one, also from Daniel. If I understand it correctly, are you suggesting we should improve and maintain tests until project handover and till the end of the service? So we should...
It's not related to monitoring, what is it?
Okay, we should improve and maintain tests until project handover, and also while the product is also in service or in operation.
Yeah, so it's related to shift right, I see. It's like, so if we are thinking about, we are quality engineers, so making sure that the quality is in the right direction, you start cross-checking the requirements. After that, your unit sets and so on, and you're reaching the stage when you're releasing the production. Production is the most important environment. So this is being used by the users. So if you don't test what is implemented, what is released to the production, how can you make sure that the right thing was deployed? So this is the only way. So just to give you an example, imagine a booking portal. If you release it to a new country, you need to check it. It's really released to the new country, and that's it. Don't overcomplicate. Just critical regression and new functionality would be enough. Like some user acceptance test. And of course, like after that, you can monitor, like, do you see other errors? Because like users might behave in another way how you would expect.
Okay, thank you. The next one is from Faisal. It's actually not a question, it's a statement. In some cases, it can be very expensive if we look for horizontal, vertical option instead of improving application optimization.
Yeah, exactly. So that was earlier one of my slides, so I cannot go back, but yeah. So if you spend much money to improve, like, or increase CPU memory, that costs a lot. If you find a way how to optimize so much, 10 times more API travel, that can cost a lot, increasing response time and so on. So you need to optimize always and make it effective.
Okay, and if I may, a question from myself as well. You several times noted that asking the end user, asking the customer is important. How do you do it? Is it a formal way of interviewing? And if yes, how often you do it? How much time does it take?
Yeah, so if there is an established channel, so if Like if I'm thinking I'm a business, I'm checking like Google Play and Apple Play, like what are the users of this? So if my application is rated like below 2, it's like something goes wrong, and I need to see and need to analyze what's there. So it's just one example. The other one, if I'm an application operation team member, I'm doing it always, understanding like the users like getting errors. So it's a symptom. If there are errors in the system, it's symptom. So it might not covered, or might the users are facing real issues. So if I do the ownership of my application, I'm asking the business like, do you see errors? No. So in that case, something wrong is implemented.
Okay, so you talk to your end users as well.
Yes.
Understand.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, collecting the information. Even if you have like your company on your Facebook, many of the users are complaining just on your Facebook profile. So you can see what's the problem there. You just need to take care.
That's my experience, that very often we think that we know what the problems are, and once in a year, you in a conference or in a company event, you talk to the end users and you realize that they have completely different problems, or the priorities of problems are different. So there is one view that you assume what the problems are, and the end user has a different view.